Shalom and welcome to Judaeo-Christianity.com. Judaeo-Christianity.com is a ministry. This ministry is Temple-Mount Centric. As a result, we are also Israel-centric. Also, please note that we have spelt it differently as Judaeo-Christianity, Judaeo. There is an A between the D and the E. So please remember this when you type in Judaeo-Christianity to go on to our website. This video is about the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. At last count, there were 3 attempts. There is a cogent explanation for these attacks. On the one hand, we will help Donald Trump save himself, and on the other, we will save America from certain disaster. As far as the former president is concerned, the key is in his hands. He can either save himself or he can destroy himself. Now, everyone among us is deeply concerned. At the outset, I must explain our focus and our methodology. This is a Judeo-Christian channel, and therefore we will be speaking from the perspective of Judeo-Christianity. By the way, there are quite a few videos I will be uploading in immediate succession. The videos address varied issues, including the present war in Israel. As we said at the beginning, we are Temple-Mount Centric. Now back to the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Many so-called reasons are floating out there. The actual reason, however, is covered here. Now, the first assassination attempt had
including if you use a ladder to get to the roof of the
It
building
was
where the
clearly a
shooting took
lone
place.
wolf attack. There were no leads
Take a look
to
what happened.
prove that there was a group or a code. There were lapses in the security apparatus. And then, very importantly, and the crucial one, there was a providential tilt of the head just at the time that the shot was fired. Totally 9 shots were fired. Now, these were a combination of factors. The third and the decisive factor was the providential tilt of the head. That was the evidence of an invisible hand, the hand of God in the set of events. Now, if God is at all involved, why did he not prevent the attack? There were indeed human and systemic failures. However, the third factor, or the tilt factor, showed the intervention of God. Hence, God, and it was only the tilt, and we characterize that as providential, and that proved to be the decisive factor. Hence, God could have stopped it entirely, but he did not. Hence, there was a message from God, and whenever I say God, I always mean the Judeo-Christian God, the God of Israel and the God of Christianity. Now, if there was a message, who was God speaking to, or who were the intended recipients? Firstly, it was the general populace, which consists mostly of conservative Christians, or in my parlance, Judeo-Christians. Secondly, it was a message to Donald Trump himself. What was that message? To decode that, we must go on to our central topic, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Now, how does the Temple Mount come into the picture? The Temple Mount in Jerusalem is the only location of which the Judeo-Christian God speaks of as a dwelling place for him. Now you can see Psalm 132 verse 14. Now the only location in the world, and let me be clear, I am speaking of a physical location. The Temple Mount is the only physical location that housed the first temple built by Solomon the son of David, and the second temple which was built by Zerubabbel, who was a descendant of Solomon as well as of David, therefore. Hence, the Temple Mount is the holiest site for Christians as well as Jews. Remember that the God of Israel is also the God of Christianity. This fact, that the Temple Mount is the holiest site for Christianity, specifically Judeo-Christianity, is the principal plank of this ministry. Therefore, all Christians, especially Judeo-Christians, are connected to the Temple Mount. Hence, all of us especially Judeo-Christians. Most Protestant Christians will fall under this category. So we must be zealous for and be concerned about the Temple Mount, always. And all Christians, Catholic and Orthodox, must be interested in all matters concerning the Temple Mount. Okay, you might have observed that I am speaking in the sets of three. We spoke of the attack, then we spoke of the Temple Mount. So we have covered two factors. What is the third factor? Now, a minute digression here. I must relate certain background details, very brief. In 2016, on the day of the election, God asked me to pray for Donald Trump. I did. However, I was soon shocked when I saw that Donald Trump was contrary to what I had expected of him. The President of the United States is firstly responsible to God, the Judeo-Christian God, and then to the people. Again, by my definition, America is a Judeo-Christian country. It is most probably fast losing the tag, but however, it started and it will continue to be a Judeo-Christian country. So now economy, jobs, border, foreign policy are all important, but actually they are not the chief issues. Since America is God's own country, God can and does take care of them. The chief factor, and that is deeply important, and that is what we are going to discuss. Now, in 2008, America did the abominable thing. They repeated the same thing in 2012. Now, when Donald Trump appeared on his campaign trail, he was taking a strong position against the other side, against the adverse religion, the religion that is averse to Christianity. I am speaking in coded language, so please decode this, and it's very easy. Hence, Donald Trump had embarked on a mission that was pleasing to God. However, after becoming president, he was doing the exact opposite of what was expected of him. Now we can discuss the third facet. What is the third facet? Saudi Arabia. You heard that right? The third facet is Saudi Arabia. As Christians, especially as Judeo-Christians, we must never forget that Saudi Arabia is the headquarters of the adverse religion and the only purely Muslim country in the world. No other religion is allowed there. From its very origin, the adverse religion has been the enemy of Christianity and has sought to wipe Christianity off the earth. Remember what one of the founders of Hamas said. We will establish our religion, that is their religion, and there will be no Zionism and no Christianity. So that is the ultimate aim of that religion and of the adherents of that religion. Again, how is this connected to Donald Trump? The answer is simple. Donald Trump is a close friend and ally of Saudi Arabia. Now that we have seen the three facets, we connect the dots. Why was Donald Trump attacked? The straight answer, because of Donald Trump's alliance with Saudi Arabia. Now, there is a primary message and there is a secondary message, both to the people and to Donald Trump. The primary message, God is telling his people, don't be unaware or be unconcerned that Donald Trump is a friend and ally of Saudi Arabia. And God is telling Donald Trump, your alliance with Saudi Arabia will be the cause of your downfall, or even worse. Saudi Arabia is not responsible for the assassination attempts. That is only God's way of telling Donald Trump that his alliance with Saudi Arabia is unacceptable to God, not acceptable. Don't also forget that Saudi Arabia has its fingerprints all over the 9/11 attacks. The largest contingent of ISIS fighters was from Saudi Arabia. So remember all that. So that brings us to the next important question. Was the problem with Saudi Arabia? Does Saudi Arabia have designs that we must be concerned about? Yes, absolutely. Here's another straight answer. Now, at some point in time, immediately or in the near future, Saudi Arabia will attempt to acquire custody of the Temple Mount, either directly or indirectly. Saudi Arabia already has custody of two of the holiest places in the adverse religion. The third holiest city to the adherents of the adverse religion is Jerusalem, specifically that part of the city that houses the Temple Mount, which is East Jerusalem. There are two important structures pertaining to the adverse religion on the Temple Mount. Now, if Saudi Arabia wants custody of the Temple Mount, then the Temple Mount first has to be liberated and taken out of Israel's hands. The entire Muslim world is united on this issue. If that happens, Muslims will be divided on which country will have custody of the Temple Mount. That is the chief reason key Muslim countries are rallying around Hamas and the Palestinians. That is the end game. We will decipher this when we discuss Ezekiel, the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. Now, everyone thinks Iran is the chief enemy. However, there is a far deadlier enemy. It is not the enemy that stands out overtly against you. That is dangerous. Iran is the chief enemy, is an enemy, but not the chief enemy. Now, the one that creeps up on you unawares and catches you off guard, that is the enemy you must beware. And that enemy is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the enemy of the Judeo-Christian world. Now, why is Israel under siege? Why is Israel on the precipice? Netanyahu addressed Congress recently. He spoke of Arab friends. Who is he referring to? He was chiefly referring and possibly only referring to Saudi Arabia. Can you see the camaraderie there? There are talks of normalizing ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia. In fact, that is where the trajectory of the Abraham Accords was supposed to end. Now, in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verse 32, there is a clear injunction against such alliances. Exodus 23:32 says, "Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods." On the basis of this, the Abraham Accords were never legitimate. Now, when you make an alliance with any nation, you are a friend of that nation. You are also accepting the religious claims of that nation. The adherents of the adverse religion say that there is no God, but so and so, there's a name for that, and they mention the name of that. Now, the identity of the God of the Jews and Christians is in the Tanakh, the Hebrew scriptures, and in the Christian Bible. Hence, when you become a friend and ally of any of the nations in the Arabian Peninsula, chiefly Saudi Arabia, where no other religion is recognized, then you are indirectly recognizing the God of that nation as well. That is what Exodus 23:32 means. An alliance has deep significance. And on the surface, it looks harmless, and it is touted as diplomacy. However, beneath the surface lies the dark face. Events like 9/11 and October 7th are a result or the natural consequence of such alliances. Trump was the initiator of the so-called Abraham Accords. Israel went and signed Abraham Accords with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. Trump had also prepared a peace plan between Israel and Palestine when he was in office, which he would have pursued if he had won the 2020 election. Remember why that happened, why that loss in that election happened. He supposedly lost the election, and could not proceed with that plan. However, the redeeming feature was that that plan did not envisage East Jerusalem as capital. The Palestinians were given suburbs around Jerusalem, the outlying areas, but not any part in Jerusalem proper. And we don't know whether Israel knew about that. However, now let's have a look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is openly talking in terms of normalizing ties with Israel. Now, here one senator was saying that the crown prince of Saudi Arabia was saying that it's not a question of if, it's only a question of when. How dangerous that has become. Now, Saudi Arabia wants to normalize ties. Why? Now, Donald Trump might become president again, and then Saudi Arabia will start calling the shots. Presently, we are seeing that Saudi Arabia is already laying down conditions for normalization. The first condition is the creation of the State of Palestine. Hamas and most Muslim nations are demanding East Jerusalem as capital. Now, to us, Judeo-Christians, that is unacceptable because that will compromise Israeli sovereignty over the Temple-Mount. Now, within the Muslim nations, there is an internal struggle for supremacy. Everyone can clearly see that Iran does not have support from the entire 57-nation OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries. Iran wants to upstage Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, on its part, will not allow Iran's actions to lead to the creation of a Palestinian state. In Saudi Arabia's calculations, the State of Palestine must come about only as a result of Saudi Arabia's condition for normalization. Then, Saudi supremacy in the Islamic world will be unchallenged. Saudi Arabia is seriously going about its task of achieving its ultimate objective with regards to the Temple Mount. In another video, I have discussed the various methods Saudi Arabia is adopting to achieve its objective, that is, acquiring some sort of control over the Temple Mount, eventually full control. However, now the sorrowful part is Israel and America are both oblivious of this grand design of Saudi Arabia. Both Israel and America regard Saudi Arabia as a close ally and friend, and Saudi Arabia does not have diplomatic relations with Israel today, from the beginning, from 1948. Never was there any normal relation. So the question of normalizing is another big question. So then, we can all see that Israel is in a precarious condition. Both militarily and economically, Israel is overstretched. Under such circumstances, Israel will allow itself to be persuaded by Saudi Arabia to accept the formation of the State of Palestine. Many in Israel who are exhausted and who want to live peaceful lives will be willing to accept the formation of the State of Palestine. However, there are also strong far-right groups in Israel that will oppose any such move. Nevertheless, there will be Herculean efforts to bring about some compromise solution, and that lead will be taken by Saudi Arabia. What Saudi Arabia is banking on is that with Donald Trump at the helm, Saudi Arabia and all its proposals will sail through because America has influence on Israel's policies. Now, Saudi Arabia will not insist on East Jerusalem as capital. That is where Saudi Arabia's diplomacy will flourish. In fact, Saudi Arabia will contend with other Islamic nations that the demand for East Jerusalem is blocking the creation of the State of Palestine, and Saudi Arabia will suggest a compromise plan. Now all eyes will be focused on the compromise plan. Now that plan will envisage some role for Saudi Arabia in connection with the Temple Mount. Clearly, some sort of a joint sovereignty over the Temple Mount. for Saudi Arabia, along with Israel, will be suggested. The majority of Muslim nations will overwhelmingly welcome the idea. Now, Saudi Arabia gets what it wanted all along, the custody of all three holiest sites of the adverse religion. Now, let's look at the point of view in Israel. Ben Gvir is demanding that Jews be allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. Even Netanyahu made such a proposal. Now, that will be an important element in the compromise plan. Some compromise will be worked out there. So, what will that compromise involve? Saudi Arabia is in the picture. So, there will be conditions for that. Now, that idea is insane. The whole Temple Mount belongs to the God of Israel and to the God of the Christians. There is no question of a compromise. Moreover, how can you pray unless there is a temple? It is a temple that makes the Temple Mount a precious location. The structure which is on the Temple Mount must be a temple. Then you can pray there. And there are other questions in the Talmud, which we'll discuss later in two of the very important videos on the Talmud. Now, and then we have got terrorist organizations. Now, all these terrorist organizations work according to a plan. Their aim is to eventually snatch the Temple Mount out of Israel's hands. Any Judeo-Christian will shiver at this idea. Therefore, the scenario of Israel normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia does not exist. Now, this is the danger that Donald Trump poses. If Donald Trump continues to be a friend and ally of Saudi Arabia, he poses a grave danger to Judeo-Christianity and to the Judeo-Christian world, and eventually to the world itself. Now, harking back to the assassination attempts, Donald Trump is not safe unless he completely severs his relationship with Saudi Arabia. Completely severing of the relations with Saudi Arabia is the only way and only safe mode now for Donald Trump. He must also sever any business relationship with any of the countries in that region, that is, in the Arabian Peninsula. Donald Trump must remember that God saved his life not once but twice. How he responds to that act of kindness shown by God towards him is up to him. Now, Jews in Israel and conservative Christians in America and all over the world must realize that we are at a critical and crucial juncture. We must stand up for God. There is no compromise on the Temple Mount. Israel's sovereignty over the Temple Mount must never be compromised. Don't forget to watch the other videos. The titles are on the screen. Now, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Since this is a Christian ministry, you may also consider making a valuable donation. You can use Amazon Pay or Google Pay. And please visit our website, a future program. That's the heading and the title. And for other forms of payment, the details are available on our website, Judaeo-Christianity.com. In any case, please do subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. We are publishing several books, several videos are in the pipeline. There is an important project called the Temple Tower Project. Then we have the Temple Mount Lectures. We are also organizing conclaves where like-minded people can congregate and discuss important issues. Thanks for watching. Shalom. Lahitraot.